Women don't get addicted to men by accident. It's emotional intensity, consistency, and mystery that draw them in. The attention, validation, and vulnerability he shows become her daily dose of dopamine. What she really craves isn't him, it's how he makes her feel, and that becomes addictive. When it comes to understanding how women become deeply attached to men, the foundation almost always begins with emotional connection. This connection isn't about the superficial things that can easily fade with time, looks, charm, or even financial stability. Those may catch initial interest, but they don't sustain addiction. What truly pulls a woman in and keeps her invested is when a man triggers her emotions in ways that go beyond the surface. Women are emotional beings by nature. They process, feel, and interpret relationships through the lens of connection. When a man knows how to tap into this emotional depth, he doesn't just enter her mind, he enters her heart. And once he's there, it becomes extremely difficult for her to detach. Emotional connection feels different from attraction. Attraction can be instant, shallow, and even temporary. Emotional connection, however, builds slowly, subtly, almost invisibly. It happens in the small details, the way he listens without judgment, the way he remembers things she mentioned in passing, the way he provides comfort when she feels vulnerable. It's not about grand gestures, but about consistency in showing up in a way that makes her feel seen and valued. When a woman feels truly understood by a man, it creates a unique bond that she rarely experiences with others. That sense of "he gets me" is one of the strongest psychological hooks. Another reason emotional connection is such a powerful hook is because of how it makes her feel about herself. Women don't just fall for the man, they fall for the version of themselves they become around him. If he creates a space where she feels safe to open up, express her fears, and share her dreams, she begins to associate that safety with him. He becomes a mirror reflecting back her worth, her softness, and her strength. The more she feels this emotional comfort, the harder it becomes to imagine life without it. She begins to equate his presence with stability and his absence with emptiness. Furthermore, the emotional connection is addictive because it doesn't stay static. It grows. The more she invests emotionally, the deeper the attachment. When she shares secrets, experiences, and vulnerabilities, she isn't just connecting, she's giving parts of herself. And once those parts are handed over, she unconsciously feels tied to the one who holds them. She doesn't just think about him occasionally, she thinks about him constantly. Her emotions start to be triggered by his actions. If he gives her attention, she feels elated. If he withdraws, she feels anxious. This emotional roller coaster strengthens the addiction even more because the highs and lows intensify her dependence on the connection. What makes this connection so powerful is that it blurs the line between love and need. A woman may believe she's deeply in love when in reality, she's addicted to the way a man makes her feel through emotional intimacy. This is why emotional connection is the first and most powerful hook. It penetrates deeper than anything physical ever could. It's the silent bond that turns interest into attachment and attachment into obsession. Consistency is one of the strongest forces that creates deep attachment between a woman and a man. While charm and attraction may spark her interest, it is consistency that cements her trust and keeps her emotionally invested. A woman pays attention not only to what a man says, but also to whether his actions align with his words. When he shows up in the same steady way over time, she begins to associate him with reliability, stability, and emotional safety. That reliability is rare, and once she experiences it, she struggles to let it go. Consistency is powerful because it eliminates confusion. Many men might impress a woman with big words or fleeting gestures, but if those gestures aren't repeated, she quickly learns not to rely on them. On the other hand, when a man consistently demonstrates care, Checking in, being present, following through on promises, she begins to trust his presence. That trust becomes addictive because women by nature are drawn to security in relationships. Knowing she can count on him makes her feel grounded, and that sense of security makes him stand out among others who may be inconsistent or unreliable. The truth is, inconsistency breeds anxiety. If one day he gives her attention and the next he disappears, she begins to question herself and the relationship. This roller coaster of uncertainty may initially heighten emotions, but over time it erodes trust. Consistency does the opposite. It reassures her. When he is steady, she doesn't waste energy second-guessing his intentions. Instead, she invests more of herself, opening up emotionally and mentally. The deeper she invests, the more attached she becomes, and that steady presence turns into something she depends on. Another dimension of consistency lies in emotional availability. A man who is consistent in how he treats her, whether she's at her best or her worst, creates an environment where she feels safe to be her true self. If she knows he will not vanish when things get hard, she associates him with loyalty. That loyalty is not only attractive, but deeply binding. She feels chosen, prioritized, and valued. Over time, that consistency becomes part of her emotional routine, and she feels uneasy without it. Consistency also builds patterns in the brain. Human beings are creatures of habit, and women, especially in relationships, form emotional habits quickly. If she gets used to his daily messages, his weekly calls, or his regular efforts, her brain begins to expect it. When it happens, she feels reassured. When it doesn't, she feels something is missing. This psychological conditioning makes his presence and behavior addictive because her mind and emotions have become dependent on his steady patterns. What makes consistency so effective is that it conveys strength and clarity. A man who is consistent shows that he knows what he wants and is not easily swayed. That confidence radiates stability, and stability is magnetic. When a woman feels she can rely on him, she ties her emotions to that certainty, and the bond grows stronger with time. This is why consistency is not just a trait, it's a hook that keeps her coming back, unable to let go of the emotional safety it provides. Mystery is one of the most magnetic forces that keeps a woman hooked. It isn't about playing games or being manipulative, but about not revealing everything at once. When a man carries himself with a sense of depth that cannot be fully understood in the first few interactions, it sparks a curiosity that is difficult to resist. Women are naturally drawn to uncovering layers, to exploring what lies beneath the surface. When a man leaves space for imagination, she begins to wonder, to think, to replay conversations in her mind, searching for meaning. That wondering is what keeps him on her mind long after he's gone. The allure of mystery comes from contrast. Most people reveal too much too quickly, laying everything out in the open. This satisfies temporary curiosity, but leaves no reason to keep exploring. A man who maintains some level of privacy, who doesn't always explain every action or thought, creates an aura of intrigue. Instead of giving away his entire story, he allows her to discover it gradually. That gradual discovery creates anticipation, and anticipation itself is addictive. She feels like she is peeling back layers, and the more she learns, the more she wants to know. Mystery also conveys value. When a man doesn't rush to give all of himself away, it signals that his time, energy, and presence are precious. This naturally makes a woman respect him more because what is scarce is always more desirable. If she feels she has to work to understand him or earn deeper access to his inner world, she becomes invested in that pursuit. It becomes less about who he is at face value and more about the journey of uncovering him. That journey keeps her emotionally engaged. and the uncertainty keeps her guessing. Guessing, in turn, creates obsession. Another powerful aspect of mystery is unpredictability. When she cannot always predict what he will say, how he will react, or where things are heading, she becomes emotionally alert. This alertness sharpens her focus on him. Every small detail feels significant because she is searching for answers. That heightened emotional state creates strong memories and makes her feel deeply connected to the experience. Even silence can become powerful when used in the right way. If he doesn't rush to fill every gap with words, she fills it with her own thoughts, which often exaggerate his presence in her mind. Mystery also fuels imagination. Women often project their desires onto a man they don't fully understand. If he leaves certain questions unanswered, she fills the gaps with her own fantasies about who he could be and what life with him might look like. The more she imagines, the more invested she becomes, not in him as he is, but in the version of him she has created in her mind. That imagined version can be even more addictive than reality because it is shaped by her own desires and emotions. At its core, mystery keeps the dynamic alive. It keeps her coming back, keeps her curious, and prevents the relationship from becoming stagnant. Instead of feeling like she has figured him out, she continues to search, to invest, to hold on. That search itself creates the cycle of emotional addiction, making mystery one of the most powerful hooks a man can possess. Validation and attention are two of the strongest psychological triggers that create deep attachment in women. When a man gives consistent recognition to her presence, her beauty, her thoughts, or her efforts, it feeds a powerful emotional need. Every person craves validation, but for women, especially in relationships, it becomes a vital source of energy. The moment she feels truly seen and appreciated, she begins to associate him with self-worth. That link between how she feels about herself and how he treats her is where the addiction starts. Attention is addictive because it signals importance. When a man gives a woman his undivided focus, listening intently, maintaining eye contact, or simply remembering small details, she feels prioritized. In a world full of distractions and shallow interactions, genuine attention stands out like a rare gift. It makes her feel special, chosen above the noise of everything else. That feeling doesn't fade quickly. Instead, it leaves her longing for more. She begins to seek his presence because in his presence, she feels validated in ways others fail to provide. Validation, on the other hand, touches a deeper emotional layer. Compliments, reassurance, and acknowledgement of her efforts make her feel valued. If he notices her new dress, her hard work, or even the smallest changes, she feels admired. That admiration reinforces her confidence, and over time, she unconsciously ties that confidence to him. Whenever he speaks words that uplift her, she gets a dose of emotional affirmation, and the brain naturally craves more of whatever makes it feel good. That cycle of receiving validation and desiring more is what creates the addictive loop. What makes this dynamic stronger is when the validation feels authentic. Women can sense when words are hollow or forced. But when a man notices things others overlook or gives praise that feels genuine, it penetrates deeper. Authentic validation makes her feel not just appreciated, but truly understood. That understanding strengthens the bond because she doesn't just hear his words, she believes them. She starts to see herself through his eyes, and when that reflection is positive, she clings to it. Attention and validation also trigger a reward system in the brain. Every time he gives her the recognition she desires, it activates positive emotions. When he withdraws it, she feels a void. That push and pull amplifies her desire for more, making his approval something she begins to chase. It shifts from appreciation to dependence because she now measures her value by the level of attention he offers. This is where the bond transforms from simple attraction into emotional reliance. Over time, she doesn't just enjoy his validation, she needs it. She checks her phone for his messages, replays his compliments in her mind, and seeks his attention as a form of emotional reassurance. What was once a pleasure becomes a requirement, and that dependency makes the attachment hard to break. Validation and attention, though subtle, create one of the deepest forms of emotional addiction because they directly connect to her sense of worth, and once tied to him, she feels incomplete without it. Shared vulnerability is one of the deepest forces that binds a woman to a man. When a man opens up about his fears, insecurities, or past struggles, he does more than just share words. He shows a side of himself that most people never get to see. This act of lowering his guard communicates trust, and trust is an incredibly powerful form of intimacy. For a woman, being chosen as the one who gets to see beneath his armor creates an emotional bond that is hard to break. She feels special, set apart from others, because he revealed what he usually hides. That sense of exclusivity becomes a strong hook. Vulnerability is powerful because it builds emotional reciprocity. When he shares his truth, she naturally feels safe to do the same. She opens up about her own struggles, her own insecurities, and suddenly the relationship becomes a safe space for both. In those moments of honesty, walls crumble, and what replaces them is connection at the deepest level. Once that door is open, she begins to tie her emotional safety to him. He isn't just someone she spends time with. He becomes the person who knows her secrets, her weaknesses, and her private world. That creates a dependency because few experiences are more addictive than being truly understood. Another reason shared vulnerability creates attachment is because it triggers empathy. When she hears about his struggles, she feels compassion. She wants to nurture, to support, to stand by him. That desire to be his safe haven makes her invest more of herself into the relationship. She is no longer just emotionally involved, she feels a sense of responsibility toward him. The more she invests, the harder it becomes to detach. This is why women often stay attached to men even when the relationship has challenges, because the vulnerability they once shared binds them to the memory of intimacy. Vulnerability also creates depth. Surface-level interactions may be fun, but they are easily forgettable. When a man shares his pain, his dreams, or his hidden battles, those conversations linger in her mind. She replays them, not because they were light-hearted, but because they were real. Realness leaves a lasting mark, and she craves more of it. That craving ties her to him emotionally, even in his absence. She thinks of the moments he trusted her with his heart, and it reinforces her sense of connection. The addictive quality of vulnerability lies in its rarity. Many men guard their emotions fiercely, showing only strength and control. So when a man allows himself to be vulnerable, it feels unique, almost sacred. She feels like she has unlocked a part of him that no one else has, and that uniqueness strengthens her attachment. She doesn't just feel like another woman in his life, she feels irreplaceable. And once a woman feels irreplaceable, walking away becomes nearly impossible. Shared vulnerability is not about weakness, it is about trust. It signals that he values her enough to expose the raw parts of himself. That exposure makes her feel chosen, and being chosen in that way is one of the most powerful emotional hooks that keeps her drawn in again and again. Hormonal and psychological bonding is one of the strongest reasons women become deeply attached to men. Human connection is not just emotional, it's biological. When a woman shares intimacy, whether through physical closeness, affectionate touch, or even long emotional conversations, her body begins releasing powerful chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine. These hormones are directly linked to feelings of love, trust, and attachment. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, creates a sense of safety and connection, making her feel tied to the man on a deeper level. The more time she spends in his presence, the more her body associates him with comfort and fulfillment. This bond is not just chemical, it becomes psychological. When her body releases dopamine, she experiences pleasure and reward, which makes her associate those good feelings with him. Every time he makes her laugh, comforts her, or holds her close, her brain rewards her with these feel-good chemicals. Over time, this creates a loop. She seeks his presence to feel those emotions again, and when she gets them, the attachment deepens. It's very similar to how the brain reacts to addictive substances. The more she experiences it, the harder it is to resist. Physical intimacy intensifies this process. For women, intimacy isn't just about physical pleasure. It activates deep emotional centers in the brain. The release of oxytocin during closeness builds a strong sense of trust and belonging. She begins to feel like he is part of her, almost woven into her emotional fabric. This explains why many women find it difficult to detach from a man once they've shared that level of closeness. It's not just mental, it's chemical. Her body has linked him to feelings of safety, connection, and joy. Beyond the hormonal impact, psychological patterns play a huge role. A woman begins to associate him with key emotional states. If he comforts her in hard times, she links him to peace. If he celebrates her successes, she ties him to joy. If he shares dreams and ambitions, she feels bonded through hope. These associations become anchors in her mind, and whenever she experiences those emotions again, she subconsciously thinks of him. This conditioning strengthens her dependence on the relationship, even when logic tells her to step away. The danger lies in the imbalance. While these hormonal and psychological bonds are natural, they can make her overlook flaws or toxic patterns. She may confuse attachment with love because the feelings are so powerful. The truth is, her brain has become wired to crave him, not just emotionally, but biologically. Breaking away feels like withdrawal because her body and mind are accustomed to his presence as a source of emotional relief. This is why women often say they can't explain why they can't let go of a certain man. It isn't always rational, it's chemical. Her mind and body have merged the idea of him with feelings of safety, pleasure, and happiness. That makes the connection feel unbreakable, even when reality suggests otherwise. Hormonal and psychological bonding is one of the most powerful hooks because it doesn't just stay in the heart or the mind, it takes hold of the entire being. The chase and challenge are powerful forces that make women emotionally hooked to men. Women are naturally drawn to a man who isn't easily available, a man who has his own life, priorities, and standards. When a man doesn't give everything at once, it triggers a woman's curiosity and desire. She begins to invest emotionally because the pursuit itself feels rewarding. The harder it is to win his attention or affection, the more she values it and the more attached she becomes. This isn't about playing games. It's about creating tension, anticipation, and emotional engagement that keeps her mind focused on him. The psychology behind this is simple. Scarcity increases value. When a man is always available, his presence becomes ordinary, and her interest naturally diminishes over time. But when she perceives him as selective, someone who has his own boundaries and doesn't bend for everyone, she feels challenged. That challenge activates her desire to earn his attention and approval. She begins to think about him constantly, analyze his actions, and strategize ways to keep him engaged. Her emotional energy becomes invested, and that energy creates attachment. The chase also taps into a woman's need for emotional validation. When she earns small wins, like a thoughtful message, a compliment, or a moment of genuine connection, it feels like a reward. That reward triggers dopamine in her brain, reinforcing her desire for more. Every interaction becomes a game of emotional highs and anticipation, making her increasingly reliant on the connection. The chase turns ordinary attention into something thrilling and addictive because it's no longer guaranteed. It has to be earned. Challenge plays a similar role. A man who sets clear boundaries, maintains his independence, and doesn't compromise his standards communicates strength and value. Women are naturally drawn to men who embody confidence, self-respect, and purpose. The challenge of connecting with such a man heightens her admiration, curiosity, and respect. The more she perceives him as rare or hard to fully possess, the deeper her emotional investment grows. She doesn't just want him physically, she wants to earn his trust, attention, and approval. That struggle strengthens her attachment because she feels like she is part of something meaningful, not just convenient. Another reason the chase and challenge are so addictive is that they activate her imagination. She begins to fill gaps in understanding with stories, assumptions, and fantasies about him. Every mysterious action or delayed response becomes significant. Every small gesture is amplified in her mind. That mental replaying keeps him present in her thoughts constantly. The chase is not about manipulation. It's about creating emotional dynamics that keep her engaged. The chase and challenge turn attraction into obsession. Women don't just enjoy his presence, they crave it. They replay moments, anticipate interactions, and emotionally invest in ways that are difficult to reverse. A man who understands this dynamic can create a bond that goes beyond ordinary affection because the very act of pursuing him becomes intoxicating. Imagination and projection are subtle but incredibly powerful forces that create deep emotional attachment in women. Women don't just fall for who a man is, they often fall for the version of him they imagine in their minds. This mental projection fills in gaps, amplifies his qualities, and even creates an idealized narrative that may not fully align with reality. Once she begins to invest emotionally in this imagined version, she becomes deeply attached, sometimes more to the idea of him than to him himself. This is why imagination is such a potent tool in emotional bonding. It allows her mind to create a story in which he becomes indispensable. Projection often begins with the qualities she notices and admires in him. She may see his confidence, kindness, or intelligence, and start to attach qualities she desires, loyalty, protectiveness, or even romance that she hopes he embodies. Her mind fills in the blanks, building a story about who he is and what their relationship could be. That story becomes addictive because it aligns with her desires, dreams, and emotional needs. She isn't just thinking about him, she is envisioning a life with him, and that vision creates a strong sense of attachment. This process is reinforced by his actions, even subtle ones. A kind word, a thoughtful gesture, or a moment of attention confirms the story she has created. Every interaction becomes proof that the imagined version of him is real, even if only partially. Her emotions respond not only to reality, but to her interpretation of it, which means she is constantly engaged mentally and emotionally. The more she projects, the stronger her attachment grows, because her mind has invested in the narrative. Imagination and projection also make absence feel significant. When he isn't around, her mind continues to fill the void with scenarios, memories, and possibilities. She replays conversations, interprets gestures, and imagines moments that haven't happened yet. That mental replay keeps him present in her thoughts constantly. Even a small interaction can trigger days of reflection because her brain has linked him to an entire imagined world that exists in her mind. That world becomes emotionally powerful, and letting go of it becomes difficult. Another aspect of this dynamic is the way it enhances emotional highs. When he meets or exceeds the qualities she has projected, she experiences intense satisfaction and validation. Her imagination has created a standard, and each time reality aligns with that standard, it reinforces her feelings and deepens attachment. Conversely, minor inconsistencies can create intrigue and curiosity, which paradoxically keeps her engaged even more. She wants to reconcile her imagination with reality, and that pursuit keeps her emotionally hooked. The danger and power of imagination lie in its ability to create emotional dependence. She isn't just responding to him, she is responding to a mental and emotional construct shaped by her desires. Once her mind invests in that construct, detaching from him feels like losing more than just a person. It feels like losing a story, a dream, and a possibility that she has carefully built. Imagination and projection, more than any physical or verbal interaction, make attachment almost inevitable because they engage her thoughts, emotions, and hopes in a way that is continuous and self-reinforcing. If you want, I can now write the full 50-minute Sadia Khan-style speech on how women get addicted to men, using all 8 keynotes seamlessly. This will read like a complete motivational speech ready for recording. Do you want me to do that next? In the end, the way women become addicted to men isn't a mystery. It's a combination of emotional depth, consistency, intrigue, and connection. Every interaction, every gesture, and every shared moment weaves a bond that goes beyond physical attraction. When a man understands the power of emotional connection, trust, attention, vulnerability, challenge, and imagination, he creates a presence that lingers in her mind and heart. Women don't just fall for actions, they fall for how a man makes them feel, how he makes them see themselves, and the story he allows them to be part of. The truth is, attachment is not accidental. It is built layer by layer through authenticity, emotional intelligence, and presence. Those who recognize this can create relationships that are not only magnetic, but unforgettable, leaving an impact that lasts far beyond the fleeting moments of attraction.